It's a great pleasure for us from Shield Healthcare to welcome each one of you for today's webinar. And I have great pleasure in welcoming Dr. Narasimha Reddy, who needs no introduction actually. Sir, thank you very much for sparing your time today. And doctor is going to talk on a very interesting topic. Topic is gossipy boma, an obsessive nightmare, and how best we can avoid the unpleasant complications during LSES. I will just give a brief introduction about Dr. Narasimha Reddy. Doctor is the president of Telangana Council of Obstetric and Gynecological Societies. And Dr. A. Narasimha Reddy is the consultant and managing director of Warangal Hospital Private Limited. Doctor has got followers from across the country, and I am sure every one of you will enjoy today's webinar. Doctor has got a lot of credit in terms of publishing papers, attending conference, all those things. So over to Dr. Narasimha Reddy. I am sure you will enjoy today's presentation. Thank you, Doctor, once again.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Balaji, can you hear me clearly?
Yes, sir, very clear.
My voice is very clear?
Clear, sir, very clear, sir.
Is it okay?
Yes, perfect.
Your voice is breaking. That's why I asked.
Your voice is perfect, sir. I think so, sir's connection have some problem.
Okay, then it's okay.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everybody. I will be speaking on one unusual topic. Nobody would like to discuss about it in our day-to-day clinical practice. That is gossipy boma, an obstetrician's nightmare. That is an unintended retention of a foreign object. Probably this may be the best term instead of missing foreign body or something like that. So to introduce the subject to you, it is nothing but the retained surgical sponge or an instrument in the abdominal cavity, which is a disaster for the patient. Almost is a disaster as well as a nightmare to the surgeon. And Shavoli boma, a place of concealment. Another alternative word to gossipy boma is textiloma, which combines the word textile, that means cloth, the suffix oma meaning a tumor or a growth. It is very obvious. These retained sponges were first referred to as textilomas. Initially, we used to call them as textilomas, but were renamed as a fancy term, Latin word, gossipy boma in 1978. The first case reported way back in 1884. Everybody believes that, probably leftover sponges may have some symptoms immediate post-operatively. It's a myth. Gossipomas may present at any time, from immediate post-operatively to several decades, to decades after initial surgery. Around 50% of them discovered after at least 4 years of the surgery. This is a very important thing one has to remember, because usually we surgeons feel that, the patient is comfortable post-operatively, nothing has been left out inside. So detection of the radio-opaque markers incorporated into the sponge and the meticulous sponge counts in the operating room are not foolproof. This is what we heard. This is another myth, because the count and radio-opaque markers will save us, but they are not foolproof. With studies showing 10% false negative rate. Surgical instruments, needles, and other items can also be inadvertently left behind in surgical fields. Clamps and retractors are the most common types of retained instruments. But items such as electrodes broken, electrocauteries, snatch pads, drains and pieces, whatnot, have been described in the literature. It is estimated that retained surgical foreign bodies occur in 1 in 5,500 to 18,000, but the real incidence may be as high as 1 out of 100 to 1,000 to 1,500 abdominal cavity operations. Probably it may be even more during emergency surgeries. Some facts about gossapomas. Gossapomas are surgical sponges that are unintentionally left inside a patient during surgical procedure. They are unavoidable and will continue to occur as we think, because we are getting more cases very often now and then. The implications, the medico-legal ramifications of a retained surgical foreign body for the surgeon can be significant. The that malpractice has taken place. Compensatory damages are awarded. Retained items are completely preventable medical errors. Everybody believes, even surgeons, judiciary, everyone thinks that it has to be prevented and it is a medical error. And it is always considered as wrong. One instance, it's recently, jury has compensated in the February 5th, 2020, that the jury awarded as penalty or compensation. See, almost $10 million have been awarded to one missing mob. See, it's a very huge amount. So you can go through the slide. I think awarded the patient 1.4 million in compensation for medical expenses, almost 8 million for pain and suffering, and $1 million in a punitive damages, which is very enormous amount. It is alarming and frightening too. Professional indemnity insurance without is made savers, or the best is the out of court settlement may be the best option or the only option available to get away with the legal complications, because everybody thinks that is an error which should have been avoided. Cases of gossipomoma are grossly underreported in the literature. Yes, it's true. This is due to the fact that it can cause great legal complications to the surgeon, and legal litigation in case of retained sponges usually comes under the legal doctrine of res ipsa liquitor, which means the things speak for themselves. So the surgeon is left defenseless and depressed too. The onus on the second surgeon, I mean to say, is the one who does the removal of the retained sponges, is enormous. He is the one, he is the mediator, whatever we call it as. He is the key person to communicate effectively with the patient and the primary surgeon in order to solve the dispute. Because the second surgeon's role is enormous, because many a times the second surgeons, who is doctors, second surgeons, may not communicate properly to the primary surgeon. Straight away we deal with the patient, causing lot of disrepute to the primary surgeon as well as to the profession too. The legal implication of the case depends upon the surgical outcome. The patient recovers well, probably we may go with minimal compensation. The prosecution may take place under various sections of the Indian Penal Code. The section 336, rash or negligent act endangering the human life. Section 3.3 case, causing hurt to any person by doing any rash or negligent act which would endanger human life. Section 3.3 of the IPC, causing grievous hurt to any person by doing any rash or negligent, also as a endanger human life, are the applicable sections. In case of mortality, the prosecution can take place under 304A of IPC, causing death of any person by doing any rash or negligent act that does not amount to culpable homicide. This is usually when applied in the road traffic accidents and so on. The best option for a primary surgeon is to go for an out-of-court settlement. Probably I may be repeating it very often. The conclusion is that gossipoma is a nightmare for the operating surgeon. However, given the complexity of surgical care, eliminating retained sponges may prove elusive. Unless no precautions were taken, they thus can attract a compensation under the law of torts, but definitely not in a criminal charge under Indian Penal Code or the suspension of license. It's some solace for us. Retained surgical materials considered as always wrong, mandating acknowledgement and direct apology to the patient and hospital payment for all costs incurred as a result. The thing speaks for itself. The fact that a surgical foreign body object has been retained itself is a proof the malpractice has taken place. In a review of closed case files in Massachusetts, 40 patients were found to have retained sponges over a 7-year period, representing about half of the claims of the retained foreign bodies during that period. 11 were vaginal sponges because as a gynecologist, as an obstetrician, retained after vaginal delivery, and these were presumably removed because we might have encountered this problem very often, might have removed within few days or so. The total compensatory damage awards for the 40 actions were 2 million. In several cases, a verdict has been returned against the surgeon. Almost 99% of the times, the case goes against the surgeon. The surgeon can be held responsible for his or her own failure to examine the field and look and or feel for the foreign bodies, independent of the staff's responsibility to perform accurate. I mean to say, whatever may be the responsibility of this staff, it is you are responsible. So one responsibility does not relieve the other because they are responsible. That doesn't mean that we are not responsible because we are liable for the punishment. So they are responsible only to a limited extent. Our responsibility is more than their responsibility. In a review of 1,000 cases reported to the National Practitioner Data Bank over a 7-year period, retained surgical foreign body resulted in a mean compensation of $77,000. The maximum payment was somewhere around $2 million. As far as the best, what we think the best in the world is the NHS in Great Britain. But they too have the problems. They had 20 million bills have been paid during the last few years after hundreds of patients leave surgery with objects left inside them. A recent NHS report said the problem occurs amid staffing shortages. They claim that it's a shortage of the staff, but that doesn't mean that the compensation can be reduced. Here is one thing, wherever we see there will be an expert evidence to counter you or support our argument or counter arguments, either the prosecution or the defense. But ironically, in all Indian judgments, the negligence has been tried under the law of torts. Never events or situations where deficiency of service. Always they said that it is only judiciary always thought that it's only negligence, never said that it's the deficiency of the service. Because many a times, there is a difference between the negligence and the deficiency of the services. Probably in the deficiency of the services, we may go without any punishment. But all our courts will think that it is in a negligence. To what extent the negligence is and should be the punishment. So negligence is presumed and no trial of experts evidence is necessary. No time the expert is being called in such type of situations. Of course, there are exceptions where the experts also have been called in. Coming to the pathophysiological aspects, there are two types. One is an exudative type leading to the formation of the abscess, which appears very often within few days of surgery. Probably this may be the best because as far as the patients or we doctors are concerned, the patient will come with some symptoms so that we can make a diagnosis. The second one is the fibrinous reaction, which results in the foreign body granuloma. We never know when it is going to be appear and where it is going to be. Coming to the differential diagnosis aspects, includes fecaloma, or the fecaloma may have spotted appearance of on CT, but as a recognizable colonic wall. As a gynecologist, I don't have much knowledge about this condition. Hematoma is seen in the early postoperative period and shows resorption in the following. Probably we sometimes mistake these foreign bodies as an hematomas. Abscess is visualized as a mass of fluid and the dense fluid and a well-defined enhancing wall. A wavy, striped or spotted internal high density areas is in the mass. The presentation. In some cases, retained surgical sponge may be discovered by accident during a radiographic examination, or when a patient comes with a mass or abdominal pain, or sometimes they may come with fistula, intestinal obstruction and whatnot. The most common symptoms are pain, a palpable mass, vomiting, weight loss, diarrhea, abdominal distension, and tenesmus. This tenesmus business, as a pelvic surgeons, we should not neglect because this is the most important one. Many a times we ignore it. There is a pelvic abscess or something like that. So tenesmus cannot be ignored as a gynecologist. The main complications are abscess, adhesion, obstruction, fistula formation, peritonitis, erosion of the GI or urinary tract, migration of the sponge into the lumen of gastrointestinal system. The imaging modalities or the workup, exams are usually on non-specific and may appear years after surgery. They usually suspicion. In advanced countries, or of course, right now it is easily available, surgical gauze is manufactured with radio-opaque threads that are easily identified in radiographs. But this is not the case in all countries. Of course, this is a slide. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Voice వస్తుంది కానీ రింగ్ అవుతుంది. Okay. తీసేద్దాం.
Hello. Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me now?
We are hearing now. In between there was a problem. Yes.
Yeah, can I continue or should I go back?
Continue, sir. It is clear now.
So I'll continue.
Yeah.
Okay. If the sponge contains a radio opaque marker, the diagnosis is very easy. Here you can see the curved or banded radio opaque play lines on the plain radiograph. On an ultrasound, it may appear as a well-defined mass containing wavy, bright internal echogenic structure with a hypoechoic rim and a strong posterior shadow. Because usually I'll say that, because those who are doing ultrasound, imagine that, when you are doing for an dermoid, probably it is almost closely mixed like a dermoid if it is in the pelvis or nearer to the ovaries. CT scan is a spongiform appearance with gas bubbles and few calcifications here and there or in the surgical sponge. Not only does a foreign body harm the patient, it adds significantly to the average total cost of caring. One more study, the total cost of care related to an left out foreign body is about $1,66,000. This cost includes legal defense and so on and so forth. According to the Sentinel event data, the most common root causes of the leftover foreign bodies informed to the Joint Commission are the absence of policies and procedures in the facilities and failure to comply the existing policies and procedures. What it means, the facilities, the hospitals, they are not following the standard protocols. Nowhere it has been documented that they have used, and that is the lack of the compliance that has been noted by the Joint Commission. The problems with hierarchy and intimidation, failure in communication with the physicians, failure of staff to communicate relevant patient information, or inadequate or incomplete education of the staff, or some of the other reasons. Occurrence of this unpleasant event was 9 times as likely when an operation was performed on an emergency basis, and 4 times as likely when the procedure changed unexpectedly. Because here it is an emergency. Now that the COVID pandemic is there, everybody is under tension. Probably this may yield more number of mistakes. What are the learning objectives? Make everyone involved to be vigilant about this entity, minimize and avoid this dreaded complication. Few reasons, the same thing has been enumerated here again. The noise, distractions, especially when the phone calls from other hospitals, other consultants, and people talking in the operation theaters, traffic in and out of operating room, unplanned change in surgery, these some of the things. Of course, level of education, training, experience play a role. What is the remedy? It's the prevention, nothing but prevention. Prevention is better than cure holds true. That is a dictum what we generally say. But here, prevention is only the cure in the case of gossipoma. Then coming to the count. How far normal count will save us? Gossipomas can be prevented by careful scrutiny of the operative wound at the time of surgery, but meticulous count of materials on sponges at the end of surgery is one thing. Most reported cases occur in the presence of a normal pack count. So one has to remember that it is whenever there is a normal pack count that should not be taken it as a 100% proof. So other precautionary measures have to be backed up. Prevention. Some of the guidelines has been suggested by the Association of Perioperative Registered Nurses and the American College of Surgeons and the Joint Commission for the Prevention of Retained Objects. One is the cavity sweeps and manual counting protocols, both of which are prone to human error. So whenever we put our hand and sweep all over the abdomen and we haven't found anything, presume that there is nothing. Similarly, sponges count is also, we presume that it is 100%, but have 10 to 15% error rate in cavity sweeps as well as the manual counting protocols. In addition, 80% of retained sponges occur with what staff believe is correct count. Sentinel event data show an incorrect or discrepant count in 52 out of the 772 cases reported to the Joint Commission. What is the count? What are the counts? We were told in our surgical residency, 5 counts are mandatory. One is before the surgical procedure starts, when a new item is added to the procedure. Third is before closing a cavity within a cavity, before wound closure begins. Final count should be performed after skin closure and before the patient leaves the operation theater. Whenever you suspect, when permanent relief of the instrument as scrub nurse, person or circulatory nurse, you have to cross-check. Who is counting in the OR? The circulating nurse or the scrub nurse or both. So they count the equipment before the patient arrives and again when the surgeon starts to close the wound. The circulating nurse who is in charge of running the OR or diversing everyone's performance initiates the count and may repeat it as necessary until everything is accounted for. An accurate count is vital to the patient's safety. Create a highly reliable and standardized counting system to prevent catastrophes, making sure all surgical items are identified and accounted for. The counting system should be supported by organizational leaders and surgeons, involving surgeons, proceduralists, nurses, and technicians too. A counting procedure should be performed audibly and visibly by 2 persons engaged in the process. This is the most important one because we never supervise the scrub nurse or the other technician whether they have counted. Just we only hear that they have counted that sir, count is normal, but we haven't verified that whether they have counted it or not. So we have to visibly see that they are counting and they have to tell audibly that everything is there. The surgical team should verbally acknowledge. That means the surgeon has to say that, yes, I checked, I too checked, and then only the closure should begin. Intraoperative radiographs should be performed when the surgical count is incorrect or when you are in doubt. The entire surgical field should be radiographed and it should be interpreted by a physician who is a competent physician or a radiologist. Effective communication. Surgeon could remind the team that the patient procedure is at risk for a missing mob. So during the procedure, a whiteboard could be used to display the count and they help the team. So everything has to be documented, putting a whiteboard in the theater premises. Barcodes, of course, if they are available with the use of barcode scanner, if it is available, you can use it. Electronic tagging of surgical sponges involves a device that gives off a signal indicating the presence of an ORSS when it is swept across the surgical site. These tagging systems which we are not having it, but the barcodes can be applied whichever they are available with the sponges, but readily they are not available in our country as of now. Please pay attention when counting your sponges. it could save a life and make your life easier, or you can save your life too. Our strategy during few points which I would like enlighten myself, how best we can avoid, especially when we are doing a common procedure like lower segment cesarean section. As an obstetrician, we will be doing day in and day out. Only one mop, because here in my procedure, we are using only one mop at during surgery. Why one mop? If it is ideal, if you don't use any mops on the table for the cesarean section, but practically it may not be possible. But sometimes it may be possible by using only suction alone. But when we use more than two, there is a possibility of missing one. So instead of using two, three, or odd number, even number, and so on and so forth, better to stick to one. If you use only one, the chances of missing is zero, because we need it till the end of our procedure. Here I am showing few videos where how we are doing. This is the sponge which is kept on the table. It is measuring 12 inches into 12 inches, which has got a radio opaque thread in it. Our experience over 10 years time, more than 7,000 cases, only single mop measuring 12 into 12 inches is used. Only in 3% of the cases, second mop is used. Mop squeezed and reused during the procedure. Thread in the middle. Here it's a case of previous cesarean section where I am excising the scar. It's in a case of breech presentation, cesarean pregnancy with breech presentation. So I haven't brought the mop onto the surgical site. I never use for mopping of the skin wounds while incising the while opening the abdomen to retract the edges of the skin so that the oozing can be minimized, or probably the edges, skin edges or so, the bleeding will stop on its own. Can we go for the next? I'll open the abdomen without separating the peritoneum from the rectus muscle. I never put any mops inside the abdomen to rotate the uterus or for the dextro rotation or so on and so forth. I never do it. If at all they are there, I'll take the help of the anesthetist or my assistant to push the uterus from above or from the sidewards. As it is a case of previous cesarean section, always I cut the lower segment with scissors only, without disturbing the amni- amniotic membrane. So as much as possible, I will extend the incision with scissors only. Here also for the breech extraction or the doing the breech delivery, I never use the mop to wrap around the baby, because I take a towel to do it, because once you use a mop to hold the baby, wrap around the baby, there is another the chance of missing it. So till now we haven't brought the any of the sponge onto the operative side. Just now, my staff, the nurse gave me the sponge. I kept it inside the wound. So here I am injecting some syntocinon into the myometrium. Usually we have the habit of injecting syntocinon 8 units intramyometrially. Usually the scrub nurse always squeezes the mop once it has been handed over to her, and she keeps the mop ready for me to use it. I fast forward. Here, in the previous cesarean section or previous sections, I always suture the uterine wound in 2 layers. So you might have observed that till the closure of the uterus, we have used only one mop, which has been squeezed very often, so that we need not have to use many more or few mops So you can see how she is doing. Many a times, whenever there is a heavy bleeding, at least you will come to know that how much blood has been lost by measuring the blood which is there in the kidney tray, because that also will help us, instead of looking into the bottle or the suction bottle which is mixed up with the amniotic fluid and so on. So measurement of the blood loss can be gauged effectively this way. If it is heavy, subjectively we can do it many a times, but sometimes it helps us in assessing objectively also. Here you can see that I am closing the peritoneum with the rectus sheath. I'll be taking few fibers of the muscle too, because I haven't opened separated the posterior peritoneum from the rectus muscle. My personal experience shows that it's better to close the peritoneum and approximate the recti muscles as much as possible, because so that you can avoid hernia, subsequent hernias. Probably it may be associated with a little bit of extra pain that has been observed in few of my patients, but that doesn't matter because you can use some painkillers or so. Even I will say that there won't be any dead space underneath the rectus sheath. I'll approximate the muscle to the rectus sheath, anterior rectus sheath. If at all another mop is required, the surgeon has to drop the mop and collect a fresh one. This is a dictum. Suppose in case if there is heavy bleeding or the mop is soaked fully and there is no time for the assisting nurse to squeeze it and give it in, then in that case, the surgeon has to drop it. The nurse will take another one. So that is a dictum one has to follow. Before closure of the abdomen, the scrub nurse has to say verbally that count is correct till the surgeon acknowledges. This has been well authenticated. Ensure that the surgeon verbally verifies the results of the counting procedure. Appropriate documentation. Document the results of count surgical items, instruments, items intentionally left inside a patient, such as needle, device, fragments, so on and so forth. So sometimes the best one is sometimes you check your staff members whether they are doing it or not. Just you hide one of the sponges or some equipment, instrument, and ask them to count. If they come out correctly, something is missing. Yes, your system is working very well. Suppose if they say that, sir, everything is normal, then you have to think twice before you close it, and you have to have your systems in place. Safe technology. Research the potential of using assistive technologies to supplement manual counting procedures and methodical wound exploration. More commonly used technologies are Sentinel Event Alert, include bar coding to aid counting. These are all technologically driven ones, but they cannot be implemented, and they may be foolproof, but it's very difficult for us to implement in day-to-day practice. Radio opaque material or radio frequency tags to detect technology enabled soft goods and radio frequency identification system to aid counting and detection. Because a lot of system radio frequency detectors on the tags, mops, so many things are available in the market, but that they are not freely available and they are not cost effective. But the procedure which we are following probably may be the easiest and the simplest and the cheapest. Lastly, wound opening and closing procedures should include inspection of instruments for signs of breakage before breakage of the instrument. That also has to be checked, because sometimes we may find some broken piece of instrument in the abdominal cavity. It will go unnoticed. It will happen most of the times, some bit of the Alice forceps tip of the Alice forceps is missing. Then you can find out if it is missing, you can find out there and then itself and taken a remedial measures. So all the instruments have to be checked only for the number, but their breakage also has to be checked in. This can and should be done for laparoscopic procedures as well, because many a times laparoscopic procedures are associated with the breakage of the tips of the equipment. Empowerment of any member of the operative team to call a closing time out prior to the initial schooling count to allow for an uninterrupted count. So one has to say that, it is perfect. Now you can close, because you have to assign a person, say that, that person says, then only the closure and everything is normal. Till that time, you have to wait. And intraoperative radiographs should be done as and when necessary. Thank you. Thank you very much for patient hearing. Balaji?
Sir, this is Dr. Kiran from Shield, sir. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation.
Yeah. I don't have a...
Yes, sir.
Tell me.
Sir, we'll take the questions. Sir, I request the audience to type the questions in the chat box so I can read it to sir. Sir, the first question
any questions are there already?
Yes, yes, there is one question, sir. The first question is from Dr. Bhairavi, sir. She wants to know, when we do LSCS in post-LSCS case, what are the chances of we missing the retained mob that was missed in the past surgery?
Finding chance of we missing retained mob that was missed in the past surgery.
Yes, sir.
That means what happened, I think I have understood this way, previously she underwent cesarean section, and probably we will be doing second section. When we explore the uterus, explore the abdominal cavity, probably we may find some mass in the abdomen. That may be the one. Suppose if she was asymptomatic, probably you may find one mass. So that every abdominal cavity opening has to be explored completely. Probably we may not be palpating the liver and all other things. At least as far as the gynecology or the obstetricians are concerned, adnexa has to be inspected properly. If not inspected, at least you palpate it by palpating both the adnexal regions and the posterior surface of the uterus will help you to find out some masses. That way you can find out.
Thank you, sir.
What are the early symptoms and signs of retained foreign body? Early symptom usually the bloating of the very next post-operative day. Many a times you will find there is a distension of the abdomen. Of course, many causes are there, but the earliest and alarming one for us is the distension of the abdomen. And sometimes the delayed appearance of the bowel movements. Because other symptoms like some fever, mild, low grade fever will appear on third or fourth day, but the earliest symptom is usually most of the times is the distension of the abdomen. Do you have any other questions?
Dr. Kiran?
Any more questions to sir, doctors?
is the best? Next question is there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Which is the best way to remove it if you have diagnosed? See, it all depends upon the pathology. If it is a granulomatous type, probably you may have to open it. Laparotomy may be required many a times, but there are instances where the laparoscopy has been advised. But the thing is, if you are an experienced laparoscopic surgeon and it's a recent one, probably it may be, you can attempt it. But the 95% of the times, the laparotomy is really required to remove it and to note the other pathology, because removal is not the only solution. You have to rectify the complications like perforation, adhesions, everything has to be corrected. And there may be a infection, localized infection or encapsulated infection in the mop that has to be drained.
Sir, there is a request from Dr. Kavita to see the ultrasound pictures again.
Okay. See, say ultrasound picture is usually the most of the times is the suspicion is the most important one. There is a mark. See, there is a posterior shadowing. Bijare shadowing is there. And as I told in the beginning itself, you know, when you suspect as if you are looking at a dermoid, because there is a fluid collection here and there is a shadow throwing. Yeah, you see how the mass is in the center, the mass is in there is a shadow throwing. So it's a Bichare type picture. Suppose if it is you have done scan in the second or third or fourth day, probably you may not pick up, because it takes time for the mop to encapsulate, to have some fluid around the mop. Then only you will be able to pick up, because if the gas is there over the mop, the bubble is there over the mop, you may not be able to pick up anything. So ultrasound has got some limitations because it takes time, at least for 1 or 2 to 3 days for you to pick up, to have some signs. But whereas the CT and other things, they can pick up instantly.
Any more questions to sir, doctors?
I think there are no questions.
Yes, sir.
I hope I have communicated very well. I hope I have not frightened you.
Sir, actually, thank you so much on behalf of the audience and Shield Healthcare for giving a wonderful, wonderful talk on a topic which is really not covered anywhere. I think it is very interesting learning for everyone. And
maybe for the first time we are doing it on this thing, because it is very, it's not discussed very often in the conferences or any of the meetings. Even for that matter, even local CMEs also we never discuss, even group meetings also, because we will try to avoid ourselves discussing about the unpleasant situation, because we don't want to even discuss with our close friends too.
Yes. Sir, Dr. Sridevi has raised her hand. So Dr. Kiran, can you just help in this?
Yeah.
What is the best antibiotic for this type infection? See, broad spectrum antibiotics which you are using. See, it's not the antibiotic which you have to, if you have the suspicion, please do the studies, because you have the doubt that there is something is missing and some patient is unpleasant. Before you discharge the patient, investigate thoroughly. At least do radiography, if not CT scan and ultrasound. Confirm yourself that there is nothing inside. Then only you discharge the patient. That is the one which I'll advise. So antibiotics, it's left to you. It's a broad spectrum antibiotics.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes, Dr. Sridhar, you are audible.
Sir, actually, as you told in the previous cesarean section, you will close in 2 layers, no, sir. But if it is very
Yeah.
much nearer to the bladder and even one single layer is papery thin and it is very difficult to close, it is getting teared off and there is always chance of injury to the bladder. In those
Yeah.
situations, how can we tackle to close
Yeah.
the?
In previous cesarean sections, don't reflect the bladder peritoneum. In a previous cesarean sections, don't reflect the bladder peritoneum. Identify the bladder. Please,
Okay.
that's maybe a little bit tricky, but identify the bladder, give your incision, because peritoneum is tougher than the muscle itself. So when you won't open the, reflect the peritoneum, you can do it. Suppose if it is too thin, not able to close in 2 layers, you can do it in 1 layer. But the better is always you do it, because the adhesion formation, again, the scar may adhere into the bladder. The patients will have post-operative pain more. So
Which
I
super
prefer,
material and which number is more advised, sir? In the
I am using Vicryl 10.
Okay, okay.
One
Thank
more
you very much,
Vicryl
sir.
I am using.
Yeah,
I am using
thank you.
one.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, sir. Very informative. We very much enjoyed your presentation, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, there is one question from Dr. Kavita, sir. She tells CT is the best in early days. Comments on that, sir.
Yeah, CT is always the best to find out the foreign bodies in the abdomen. Because even the ultrasound we may miss, we may not be able to pick up on ultrasound. The CT does it. Suppose if you have the privilege of, I don't say privilege, that you want to find out the only MOP which is radio opaque, has the radio opaque string. X-ray does the job, but the CT is the best. CT abdomen or wherever you want. You know, it has to cover the whole area. Not the, suppose if you have done only hysterectomy, don't limit yourselves to the pelvis. You see that, you know, abdominal, upper abdomen also has to be covered. So it is from the diaphragm to the pelvis, to the thighs. It has to be scanned.
Sir, if you can find the patient with retained mass, something like sponge, and if she comes in septicemia with high temperature and mass, even then you wait for some time or you do it an emergency procedure, sir?
No, stabilize the patient. You know, you can't, if the patient is in septicemia, you do surgeries. You know, you have to stabilize. You have to correct the her general condition. But as early as possible, you have to go for it, because otherwise, unless you remove the source, the patient is not going to recover.
Exactly, sir.
So all our vitals have to be, because see, probably by subjecting the patient in an unstable condition, which is, she is not fit for surgery, probably we will be endangering her life. So we have to weigh the balance.
Preferring, sir, nowadays?
Pardon?
Which antibiotics you prefer, sir, among the all higher antibiotics in septicemias and all those?
In fact, I am not used to all these higher antibiotics. I am using only Taxim nowadays for 3 days, and it is being supplemented by the gentamicin for all my routine cases.
Okay, so double antibiotic along with Taxim, you are
Double
adding
antibiotic. Sometimes
oh.
I am using. Otherwise, a single antibiotic does the job.
Okay,
And
non-complicated, single is enough, sir. Okay. Thank you very much, sir.
Sir, the next question is from Dr. Saumithya Banu, sir. How to avoid thinning of scar in subsequent LSCS? I feel chromic is better than Vicryl. C chromic scar were thicker than my recent cases. Is it my illusion, sir, or suture material has some effect on the healing, sir?
Usually it is presumed that the chromic catgut has got the high rate of tissue reaction, but Vicryl is the best. Vicryl is the best. Still, I believe Vicryl is the best, but the suturing has to be limited, minimal as possible, because too much of suturing, too many sutures, too close to sutures make the edges ischemic, so which will result in a poor scar subsequently. And one more thing is the duration of the or interval pregnancy. If the duration is very less, the patient conceived within a year or so, or within 6 months or so, definitely you are going to have a very thin scar. That is my observation. But still, I presume that the Vicryl is the best.
So even in wide keloids of previous surgery, you excise the total scar. Again, you put subcuticular only, sir. Wide keloid.
Yeah. Whether keloid is there or not, even the very thin, invisible scar also is there. I will cut the edges, because that will give the good suturing and heals better. Suppose you have given the scar is not visible, you directly incise on the scar and we put a subcuticular suture, probably it may not heal. You excise a little bit here and there so that the fresh edges will be there, the healing will be better always. I always excise the scar.
Okay. Most of the surgeons we observed, and even in organic practice, they directly open in the middle of the previous scar and approximate.
No, that should not be, because the edges will be scarred. How are you going to heal? Because the scar with the scar, the healing will be poor. So fresh edges always will be better.
Yes, sir. Exactly. Even I prefer the same. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Sir, with your permission, can we share the recording of the video with the audience, sir, if it's okay?
Yeah, you can. If they want. Okay.
Yes, sir. So, sir, actually, since there are no more further questions, thank you so much, sir.
At the end, I would like to thank the Shield Healthcare for arranging this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Balaji, and convey my good wishes to Pawan and others.
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you so much, sir.
Very much informative presentation of the retained sponges and all that. Very informative, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. I am your junior, sir. I am Dr. Sridevi from Mancherial, sir. Thanks. Very nice to listen to you after a long time.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. Okay.